Can you see that? Seeing your breath in the air, cool fall morning, and a day with Coalcracker. So this past weekend we had our advanced bushcraft class. It was an awesome class. If you get next year to come out, definitely worth it. Everybody has a really good time. But the reason I'm saying that is I learned a really cool little trick when it comes to a jam knot. Now, I did a video on the jam knot before. We called it the Appalachian jam knot just because it would make people get crazy. Some call it the Canadian jam knot, others say it's just a jam knot. No matter what it is, jam knot. But there's a little trick to it that I learned that's awesome. So I think it's important that we preface this knot with a few things. Number one is that we are utilizing paracord for this. We've taken the guts of the paracord out, so the inner strands are gone. That is going to allow it to bind on itself much, much better. Now, the knot itself is just a loop like this that slides, okay? And there is a stop knot right here. So that's stop knot number one, then our sliding loop, and then we are going to place this on two flats, okay? This knot gets extremely tight. It is going to replace, in our case, what we were doing this weekend is we were making buck saws, so it's going to replace a diagonal lash, okay? So when you do this, two flats is going to make the wood hold together better. You would take your jam knot and you go over the sides like this. So usually we would just pull on this line, okay? So we would pull that and it would tighten everything down, and then we would start to do that ratcheting action to get this super tight. So what normally would happen then once that's tight is we need to put an overhand knot in place just like this, and that overhand knot then we need to work down and try to get it as close to the back of our knot as possible, because if, say, the knot was up here and we have this little bit of a gap, as this works, you can see my stop knot and my second stop knot now is sliding up and catching. So there's a really easy way to avoid this and get a super tight stop knot up against our jam knot. Before we actually tighten this all the way down, you can see my loop is loose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my initial stop knot end and my long end, and I'm going to tuck that whole thing underneath itself. It seems goofy, but wait till you see how this works. We tuck it underneath itself, pull them through, and what you're going to notice now, once I do this, is that we have the cut end here, and now we have this loop we created. This loop, if I pull one end, is going to continue to pull all the way through. We don't want to do that. So all I'm going to do now, if I pull the other end, is that is going to tighten down my knot. So I can pull this thing as hard as I want right here, and that tightened down my jam knot. But now we still have this loop. So this loop, we take our cut end of our rope. Once this is as tight as we want, we put it inside the loop, and then we simply hold the knot in place and pull. Okay, what's happening now when we do this, that loop is already in place. It is going to butt directly up against our jam knot and finish the jam knot off. And by using that technique, a jam knot will never be loose again on you. That final knot is really the most important, other than tightening down a jam knot, of course, but it's the most important part of that knot, because that's really what's keeping that thing in place after the fact, okay? If you didn't put that there, it opens up and it slips, so you need to put that stop knot. And by tucking that underneath, creating that loop and pulling, it's always going to be uptight, as tight as it can get against the slip knot itself. Try this. See what you think. If you hate it, don't use it. If you love it, another tool for the toolbox. So this was Dan Wolak of Coalcracker Bushcraft. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com. Until next video, stay in the cool woods, because it's cool this morning. It's actually on the verge of cold.